All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Go ahead and get started with questions for Coach. We'll start with Colton.
Paul, you've seen Barry in a lot of different roles, both as assistant for him, a coordinator for him, and now being head coach in his department. He says that he hasn't changed throughout all those years. What's your take on that? Have you seen his personality and the way he operates changes through all that time?
I think that, in each one of those, I've always felt fortunate to be working for him and with him. And I think that so many of what his core beliefs hadn't changed. And I think that's I think that was always what I appreciated from working with Coach Alvarez was that, everyone that heard him speak today, it is real about what drove him. And that was obviously there's a competitive part of him, no doubt. And yet, truly the love of the student athletes and the love of the game and competition. And really in all the roles that I was fortunate enough to be with Coach under, those resonated, and those were true every time. So I think obviously, it was different when he was, head football coach and then, was doing both, and then just as the athletic director. But I think he stayed true to himself, and what drove him was the same things that drove him as a coach and as the athletic director.
Again, if you've got a question for Coach, go ahead and drop me a note in the chat. We'll go to Jesse.
Paul, obviously the relationship between a football coach and an athletics director is important. What traits do you hope to see in Wisconsin's next athletic director, or what is important to you for Wisconsin to find?
Well, I mean, it's, you appreciate, going back, Coach Alvarez is been around a lot of them, and he's the best that I've, been with. And I think that's, it's a good starting point. And not that you're there's one Barry Alvarez, and but Chancellor's got a process, and I'm confident in that process. And Wisconsin's a special place, and in what we're doing, we'll get the right person, I'm sure.
Back to Colton.
Well, you hear Barry talk about early in his career and then throughout his career, the importance of recruiting Wisconsin, and you've clearly continued that in your time. Is there a way to quantify just how important that's been to your success and success of the program, is building that wall, as he always says?
Yeah, it's I suppose there's a way you could probably quantify it, but it's I absolutely believe in it. And each year you gotta work at that. But it's I know that when Coach was at Iowa, and we had a lot of players that left the state, and were good players elsewhere, and we've been fortunate. When I was an assistant for Coach Alvarez and coming back, you take a look at it, and there's a lot of really good football players from this state, and for us to be the best team we can be, I still believe it's true, what Coach said a long time ago, and that's you got to start with getting the best kids in state. And so still believe it's true, and he certainly I think it was a big part of what he believed in, and certainly learned that lesson quickly from him, and need to continue to go forward with that.
Back to Jesse.
Paul, what would you say you learned the most from being around Barry that you've taken with you as a head coach?
That's a good question, and that there's there's so much to learn from him. And that was part of the draw for me, the second time I came back, the first time came as a tight ends coach, and I thought, how fortunate was I to have, that opportunity to work for Coach Alvarez and to be back at Wisconsin. And then when I came back the second time as a coordinator and certainly knew more then, but I remember the first time I was back in coaching tight ends, and there was a lot of different coaching styles that was on that staff, a very successful staff. And I remember, talking to Coach Alvarez and kind of asking him, what kind of coach does he want? And I always appreciated then, and have tried to take this forward, and everything I've done is, he said, trust yourself and be who you are. And I thought that resonated then, and it still resonates now. And I've always admired the way that he approached the game, and truly, the big games, absolutely loved them. And I think there's a ton of lessons that you learn, and kind of the how-tos of doing things to kind of some bigger macro type issues and how to handle them. But I think it reinforced, I think I had it, but it reinforced in a different way, kind of the reason you coach, and that's to help the players and be the best they can be. And if you care about them, you can coach them. And some you need to coach hard, some you need to coach a little bit different, just like with how he wanted us to coach, be true to who you are. And I think then if you do that with the players and who they are and what they need, and as long as they know where you're coming from, I think that's a huge takeaway. Certainly takeaway from the time spent with Coach Alvarez. And really it was reinforced, even then, him, working for him when he was just the athletic director. He kind of would still remind you of that. And boy, how fortunate was I, for the time that I did have to be able to, have so many conversations with, your athletic director, but at the same time, a guy that's been in the exact same shoes you're in, and always appreciate that.
Steve. Steve, go ahead.
You've kind of just touched on it, but I was just wondering how his background as a coach helped him get along with coaches, not just in football, but all the different coaches in the athletic department. How much did it help us having an athletic director with a coaching background?
I think it's, there's so many things to it. Certainly the coaching background, and he understands so much of what goes into it. And I think that's always helpful. And I think it also, it helped kind of the way that he wanted us and made sure everyone in the department, treated each other and our student athletes and all those that do so many things, kind of behind the scenes, that truly, like any good coach, he believed in team, and it took everyone. And I think that, people knew that's what Coach wanted. It's a culture that, he built. And I think as a coach working for, Barry as the athletic director, it was what a bonus, right? That he, in so many ways, been there, done that. And so there weren't many things that, you could go to him about just about anything, and maybe not exactly like that, but he had experience with it, and always appreciated that, and he appreciated his insight and help that you would get.
We'll wrap things up with one more from Colton.
Paul, Barry's been asked a few times today what decisions he's most proud of, or decisions that he feels the best about in his 30 plus years here. And he said a couple of times bringing you back on as a head coach. is something that's right up there at the top of the list. Just what does that mean to you to hear that from a guy that you spend so much time around and obviously work so closely with?
Well, it's humbling. And, every time that, I had an opportunity to work for Coach Alvarez, you just want to do your part. And for him to say that, it means a lot. And it means a lot because of the respect and the admiration and that I have for Coach Alvarez. And, it was, today was an interesting day, and certainly so much to be celebrated. And yet there was I found myself a little bit sad, only that, every day that I've had a chance to work for him, I truly enjoyed it and appreciated it. And I know he'll still be around, but it's, and that's a selfish thing on my part, but he gave me a ton of opportunities. And when someone does that, to me, the best way you can show your appreciation is by putting the work in and trying to do your best. And obviously we'll continue to do that, but it certainly means a lot because of what he means to me.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.